You work harder than most people around you. You put in the hours, you skip the breaks, but nothing hits the mark. This usually has very little to do with your work ethic and everything to do with your direction. Take Viren, a young monk known as the hardest worker in his monastery. He was the first to rise and the last to go to sleep, often finishing more chores in a single afternoon than his peers managed in 2 days. This frantic pace was a defense mechanism. As a boy, he watched his father's shop fail because it sold only one type of cloth. When the season changed and nobody wanted that specific fabric, the business collapsed. Viren promised himself he would never rely on a single point of failure. He decided to put his effort into everything at once, studying, meditating, and physical training, all with the same high-intensity scattershot approach. By refusing to commit to one path, he felt safe. But while he was constantly moving, he wasn't growing. He was burning massive amounts of energy just to stay in the same place. When he tried to study, he would flip through page after page of complex texts. Because he was already thinking about his next task, he couldn't hold the meaning of the words. His mind was too crowded to let anything sink in. His meditation was just as restless. He would sit on the cushion, but his thoughts never settled. In his physical training, his form remained rough and unrefined because he was always rushing to the next drill. He was living a paradox. He was exhausting himself every day, pushing his body and mind to their limits, yet he had zero results to show for the strain. This is the primary trap of modern ambition. Real, bone-deep effort that yields no momentum is the fastest way to burn out. One afternoon, the old master led Viren to the archery field behind the monastery. The constant noise and motion of Viren's daily chores suddenly fell away, replaced by the quiet of the open range. At the far end of the field sat a single target made of stacked straw. The master handed Viren a sturdy bow and a single arrow. Viren had practiced this before. He stood firm, straining his muscles as he pulled the string back with every bit of his strength. His form was clean, and his power was undeniable. He had the tools and the technique. In this moment, his potential was at its peak. But potential is only useful if it has a place to land. Before Viren could release, the master walked down the field. He picked up the target and moved it 30 steps to the right, tucking it behind a row of trees. The target was now completely hidden from the archer's line of sight. Confused, Viren hesitated. The master told him to shoot anyway. Viren made a halfway adjustment, shifting his weight slightly toward the trees, and let the arrow fly. The arrow was fast. It tore through the air with enough force to pierce the target easily, but it didn't. It whistled past the trees and buried itself deep in the empty grass. Raw power is wasted the moment the destination shifts. If you don't fully recalibrate your aim to meet the new reality, you are just throwing your energy away. The master sat on a bench and asked Viren why he missed. He systematically ruled out the obvious excuses. The arrow wasn't weak, it flew far. The archer wasn't lazy, the pull was strong. The failure came down to a simple fact of physics. The arrow missed because it was pointed in the wrong direction. The trajectory and the target existed in two different places. This diagram shows the anatomy of the miss. The raw materials, point, wood, release, were perfect. But watch the effort line extend. It completely bypasses the target. The further it flies on this wrong path, the more energy is lost to that red space. Alignment determines the outcome before you ever let go of the string. Without it, you are simply fueling a miss. The master applied this to Viren's life. He wakes first and sleeps last, yet his results are empty. He is putting in the effort, but he is shooting into the grass. Switching meditation methods every week, or jumping between half-finished books, mimics the archer who refuses to look at the target. The arrow flies, but it never points at one thing long enough to hit it. Think about the geometry of this movement. If your goal is to the west and you run east at full speed, your effort is working against you. The faster you run, the further away you get from where you need to be. Effort without direction isn't a display of strength, it is active self-sabotage. Most people are afraid to stop and find their aim. In a world that values constant hustle, standing still looks like weakness or laziness. But the man who stops to aim hits the mark with one arrow. The man who shoots without aiming uses every arrow in his quiver and hits nothing but air. You must secure your aim before you take action. Once you have your target, you do not move the bow until the arrow has landed. Aiming requires a moment of total stillness. This pause creates the clarity that makes the work that follows actually count for something. Viren looked at his arrow lying in the dirt. It had flown fast and far, but it was useless. It sat in empty ground while the target remained untouched behind the trees. The next morning, Viren didn't try to do everything. He chose one text and sat with it. When his mind tried to wander to the next chore, he pulled it back. For the first time, he actually understood what he was reading. This wasn't because he had suddenly become more intelligent. It was because his attention was finally pointed at a single target. If you are working hard but hitting nothing, stop running. Find your direction before you worry about your speed. Aim first, then shoot.